Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Ultra Hardware number 16130 Grade 2 Commercial Door Closer. So first of all, you can see that this is a relatively small door closer. This is a Grade 2 size 2, and size 2 specifically means that it has a significantly smaller footprint than standard. So beware that if you're buying this, this is not the most common one, but if you're buying this, you possibly know that this is exactly what you need. And really what I mean is the footprint size tells us that this is a smaller closer with a 6 5/8 center to center on the footprint between the screw holes, and then of course the standard 6 3/4. Pardon me. 3/4 inch, 6 5/8 horizontal and 3/4 inch vertical screw hole centers. That footprint pretty much tells us that it's a size 2 closer. So keep that in mind. This is going to be for 55 to 99 pound doors. Light duty use, non-handicap compliant use, something that you'll see on a lighter or less frequently used door. The 16130 is inherently a bronze closer. That's part of the part number. So this is obviously the body. It's completely non-handed. Okay, you're going to have a poorly marked valves here for sweep and latch. Sweep, we'll back up. We'll go over that in a moment. The other components of the door closer you're going to get, of course, will be the arm, a main arm and a forearm, the threaded post style here, and the soffit shoe. You're going to get a little cap that will dress off the spindle assembly regardless of what size you use it on. One size will be exposed. You'll use that cap to drop it off. You'll get a parallel arm bracket because it's tri-packed. It comes packaged to be mounted any one of 3 ways, and I'll go over that in a moment. Then, of course, all the fasteners that you'll need. Wood thread, machine thread, you're covered with everything. So there's a link below this video to the instructions, and it shows immediately what page to refer to depending on the installation. So a standard installation is also called regular arm, and you would go directly to page 2. Page 3 is top jamb. That's where the body is mounted on the header, and the soffit and the arm shoe is mounted on the face of the door. Very typical installation that you're going to see in out-swinging doors where the closer has to be on the push side of the door and you're not using the parallel arm bracket. And then speaking of parallel arm brackets, the PA or parallel arm installation is referred to on page 4, where the body is on the door on the push side and the parallel arm bracket is mounted to the underside of the head. Okay. Now, page 2, 3, and 4, there's only 4 pages to this installation. Page 1, page 2 and 3, and then page 4. You just jump directly to the installation aspect of what you're dealing with. And I'm not going to go over all of the installations of all 4 of these at this time, but only to say that all of the installations, the important thing that you have to know when installing a door closer really is determining the degree of opening, how far you want the door to open, is directly related to the placement of the body of the closer in the installation. So just using the regular arm on page 2 as an example, and this applies to all of them. Basically, the instructions say up here, for openings to 120 degree, you want to have 9 16 dimension for here, but the center line of the hinge that we're talking about is down here. For openings to 120 degree, you're going to have a dimension of 3 3/4 inch, meaning from the center of the hinge to where the body starts, pardon me, from the center of the hinge to the center line of the screws is going to be 3 3/4 inch. Okay. Then, if you want to have an opening degree of 120 to 180 degree, you're going to move that effectively closer to the hinge and make it 2 9/16, meaning the body will be closer to the vertical axis of pivoting or the center line of the hinge, allowing for the installation to open up beyond 120 degrees. All of the 3 different installations that you could possibly encounter are all going to be using the same principle. Another principle that is identical to that is this fact. The side in a regular arm, the side with the control valves goes towards the hinges. Okay, that is going to be the same for your top jamb mount, but will be opposite for your parallel arm. So you can take this body and install it with these sweep and latch valves towards the hinges or away from the hinges. If it's a regular arm or a top jamb arm, you install the body so that this end is towards the hinges. If it's a parallel arm, you install it the opposite way. It's called out that way in the instructions, so it's not going to be difficult to make a mistake in that regard. Once you know the vertical line, how far away the body is from the hinges, you're also going to reference the dimension from the top of the door to the center line of this first screw. At that point, you're going to have the rest of your dimensions. In the example of the regular arm, it's 1 inch, as you can see there. Okay, it's 1 inch dimension, top of the door to the center line. So down here is the first important dimension, and then up here is the second. Everything else is going to fall in line from that sort of condition that you're going to have there. Now, what I have found is that in the installation where you're doing a parallel arm, this is going to be your sweep speed, meaning when the body is turned away from the closer, this is the sweep valve. The lower one is the latch valve. When this is towards the hinges in a regular arm or top jamb arm, you're going to have a sweep down here and a latch down here. Now what those valves refer to is the first 5 or 10 degrees of the opening or closing cycle. That's called the latch valve area. Past about 10 degrees out to about 90 is your sweep. So the one valve will control it out here, and then the second valve controls just the last few degrees, called the latch valve. And that's a very universal sort of situation. And in addition to that, I spell it out in detail right here, what I just explained, using those 2 dark arrows that you see there. Instructions on how to adjust the valve, clockwise is going to close the valve, so you've got a slower amount of travel or a greater amount of control over the situation. And you'll find that when you're adjusting those, which is a very common thing to do, as the seasons change, as air pressures change, as the use of a building changes, meaning you might have doors open a lot more, so wind will come through the building at a different rate in the opposite season, you'll have to adjust those. And it's nice that these closers include that sort of adjustability, even though you do have to adjust it, over time. Looking at the top jamb mount, there is nothing new to really address there outside of what we've talked about regarding the placement of the body. You do want to make sure that you've got ample room to get the body installed onto the header of the frame. So this is a top jamb. It's page 3. It's where the body goes onto the header. You're going to want to make sure you've got ample room to get that all installed. And it's really shown right here in a cross section what it's going to look like. Top jamb is a really good method of installing door closers because the door closer is very efficient at doing its job when it's top jamb mounted or when it's regular arm mounted. And what's nice about the top jamb is that you get the body out of the way. There's nothing hanging on the door if you have a regular arm mount and the door opens in, you've got that body mounted to the door, so you don't want it to come in contact with a perpendicular wall. When you top jam mount it and put it on the opposite side, there's nothing in the way to hit the wall. Now, the parallel arm installation is by far a very common sort of installation where you've got the body mounted, and that's on page 4 of the PDF below, where you've got the body mounted on the door on the push side, and then you're going to employ this parallel arm bracket, okay, mounted onto the header. In that sort of situation, you lose this bracket. You lose it in the sense that you remove it. Then this hub here mounts directly to the pin here and makes that sort of mechanical connection. Okay, so this shoe goes, and then you install the forearm directly onto the parallel arm bracket. Again, in this installation, it specifically says mount closer on door with speed regulating screw away from hinge edge. No problem. It's called the parallel arm sort of installation because the main arm, which is this portion of the arm, this is the forearm, main arm and forearm sort of idea. The main arm is typically parallel to the face of the door, or very near so. So that's why it's called the parallel arm mount. If you have any questions on installing these, feel free to reach out. I've installed closers plenty of times. Really the critical thing to make sure is that you get the location of the body correct. Because as the door is opening underneath the frame, you've got a very small tolerance there. And if the vertical placement isn't correct, then your arm is going to interfere with the header or the top of the door. You might enter or exit through a door and you hear a clanking sound when you open it. Well, that's the arm hitting typically the top of the door because it's just not exactly where you need to be in terms of location of that installation. You want to use a center punch when you're prepping your holes for this sort of material. And by all means, if you're going to do more than one closer installation, make yourself a template so you only have to measure once. You can cut yourself a rectangular piece of wood that you square off to the top, hinge side of the door with holes, and all you do is mark your holes with a center punch, and you're really in good shape at that point. You're not worried about making a misdimension once you do it the first time. Now, Ultra Hardware is a full line importer of all things commercial and residential hardware related. They have a very full line of material in that area. And light duty or medium duty commercial hardware like this is very much within their wheelhouse of things that they do quite well, especially considered dollar for dollar. It's a very good value. Again, this is a grade 2 closer, meaning it's light duty commercial or residential, in a size 2 closer, which is going to be very atypical of most commercial installations, so be wary of that. But if you have a closer that you're replacing and you've got those 6 and 5/8 hole centers, this would be perfect for you. And obviously the dark bronze is fairly common as well. Any questions on the Ultra Hardware 16130 commercial door closer or any other Ultra Hardware product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.